These signs mean you're about to activate a spiritual power from God. We've all had moments when life suddenly feels strange, like we're walking through a world we no longer quite belong to. It's as if the colors of life are drained, the noise is louder, the silence deeper, and somewhere inside, something begins to stir. That's not your imagination. That's not a midlife crisis or a burnout. That's the beginning of something holy, something ancient, something divine. You are not going crazy, you are awakening. And what you're awakening to is not just a new phase of life, it's a spiritual power that has been coded into your soul since the moment you were created. A gift from God. A force that can alter the course of your life and ripple into the lives of others. But before we talk about what it is, we need to talk about how you'll know it's coming. Because the signs are never what you think. Spiritual power doesn't arrive with fireworks. It doesn't come with a parade or an announcement. It comes with a whisper. It comes quietly, in the middle of your ordinary life, when something inside you begins to feel unsettled. You may begin to question everything, the path you've been walking, the beliefs you hold, the people around you, even the identity you've built. You might feel like your passions are evaporating, your motivation is dying, and nothing makes sense anymore. This is not a personal failure. This is divine disorientation. It's the first sign, the unraveling. Because when God is about to activate something powerful within you, He first has to clear everything that would block it. He can't pour fresh oil into a vessel that's still full of yesterday's wine.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lesson.
So He allows your old life to become uncomfortable. And not because He's punishing you. Because He's preparing you. Think about it. You don't rebuild a house on a shaky foundation. You tear down the old structure. You dig deeper. You remove what's rotten. And only then do you begin to rebuild. So if you feel like your life is falling apart, ask yourself, what if this is the teardown before the divine upgrade? What if this is the space between the ending and the awakening? Another sign is the sudden increase in emotional intensity. You may find yourself crying for no reason. You may feel waves of anger, sadness, grief, emotions that have been buried for years rising to the surface. These are not breakdowns. These are breakthroughs. The soul doesn't activate through logic. It activates through release. God is not just trying to change your circumstances, He's trying to purify your frequency. But He's preparing your inner temple to hold something sacred. And all the emotional energy that no longer serves your higher timeline must be released. So when the tears come, let them. When the emotions rise, welcome them. You are not weak. You are detoxing. You are expanding. You may also start to feel alienated from others. Friends who used to feel like home may now feel distant. Conversations that once lit you up begin to feel like noise. This can feel lonely, but you must understand, when God is about to activate something powerful in you, He often isolates you. Not to punish you, but to reintroduce you to yourself. He pulls you out of the crowd so you can hear the whisper, so you can feel the pull of your authentic path. Because the power He's placing inside you cannot be shaped by popular opinion. It must be forged in the fire of solitude and self-awareness. And then there's the strange magnetism. You start noticing signs, repeating numbers, prophetic dreams, sacred symbols, random encounters that feel loaded with meaning. You open a book and the exact sentence you needed jumps out. You overhear a conversation that answers a silent prayer. These are spiritual breadcrumbs. They're not coincidences. They're confirmations. God is speaking, not in thunder, but in synchronicity. And He's drawing you deeper into the mystery of your own becoming. But here's where it gets real. Just before the activation happens, just before the spiritual power within you bursts into reality, you'll hit what feels like your lowest point. You'll question everything. You'll feel like giving up. You'll doubt your path, your purpose. And this is the final test, because God doesn't give power to the ego. He gives it to the soul, and the ego must break before the soul can rise. So if you're at that point right now, if you feel like you're at the edge of your self-good, you're close, you're right where you need to be. And let me say this, the power that's about to awaken in you is not just for you. It's not for fame. It's not for validation. It's for service. It's for impact. It's for something far bigger than your personal dreams. It's for the collective. It's for the timeline of humanity that is crying out for light bearers, for truth tellers, for those who have walked through the fire and emerged glowing with God's power. And you? Pooh, you are one of them. So here's the question I want you to sit with. What if everything you've gone through, every heartbreak, every betrayal, every disappointment wasn't meant to destroy you, but to prepare you? What if it was all sacred training for the power that's now knocking at the door of your soul? You are not becoming powerful. You already are. What you are becoming is aware of it. What you are stepping into is the remembrance of who you were before the world told you who you had to be. And when you remember that, when you truly align with it, nothing can stop what's about to be unleashed. The breaking point before the blessing, why it feels like everything's falling apart right before the activation. There is a sacred threshold that most people never talk about. It's not the mountaintop moment of realization, nor the peaceful glow of enlightenment. It's the storm before the stillness. The moment when everything you thought you needed begins to slip through your fingers. You're not just losing people, plans, or possessions, you're losing layers of yourself. And it hurts in a way that feels almost unbearable. This is the breaking point. And if you're here, standing at that edge, you need to know something very few understand. This is not the end. This is the doorway. This is the exact moment your soul has been preparing for. Because right before the spiritual power within you activates, everything false must fall away. See, we've been conditioned to believe that divine power feels like a lightning strike from the heavens, sudden, obvious, immediate. But the truth is, spiritual power from God doesn't feel like power at first. It feels like loss. It feels like confusion. It feels like the universe has gone silent when you need answers the most. You start to ask questions like, why is this happening to me? Or why does it feel like everything is being taken away? And the deeper, more powerful question is this: what if everything is not being taken away, but being cleared out so that something greater can enter? When you're about to activate something divine, life has to recalibrate around your new energy. Your vibration is shifting, your awareness is expanding, and the old structures that once supported your limited version of self can no longer contain who you're becoming. So they collapse, and it looks like things are falling apart. But in truth, they're falling into alignment. This is the paradox of power. It often disguises itself as pain. But the pain is not punishment. It's pressure. Pressure that breaks open the shell of the false self so the soul can rise. You might feel like all your progress has vanished, that you've been doing the inner work, praying, meditating, healing, and still, life feels heavy, uncertain, even cruel. But what if the intensity you're experiencing is not proof that you've failed, but proof that you're getting closer than ever? You're in the sacred cocoon, the inner chamber where God does his deepest work. And like a seed underground, the moment of darkness is not death, it's gestation. You are being rewired, reconstructed, reborn. One of the clearest signs that you're at this breaking point, and therefore closer than ever to the activation, is when you begin to feel like nothing external can satisfy you anymore. The things you used to chase, success, validation, relationships, security, they no longer hold the same power over you. But you begin to look inward, not out of defeat, but out of necessity. Because something inside is awakening that demands truth, not distraction. Depth, not noise. This is the soul's hunger. And it's the hunger that precedes the feast. But there is another layer to this moment, a deeper one that we must talk about. And it's this: right before you receive the divine power, you will be tested with its opposite. You will be confronted by the shadow of what you are about to become. If you're about to activate a healing gift, you may go through an illness or emotional wound that seems to break you. If you're about to become a guide for others, you may experience a season of intense loneliness. But if you're about to step into abundance, you might walk through a valley of lack. This is not spiritual cruelty. This is calibration. The darkness comes not to destroy your light, but to refine it, and to make sure that when your power activates, it is rooted in humility, clarity, and compassion, not ego. And here's where most people turn back. They hit this wall of discomfort, this invisible threshold of fear and pain, and they assume they've done something wrong. But what if this isn't the wall? What if it's the veil? A thin membrane between the old you and the version of you that walks in divine authority. What if your willingness to keep walking through the uncertainty, the pain, the spiritual fog is the exact act of faith that opens the gate? This moment, this breaking point, is not asking for perfection. It's asking for surrender. It's asking for you to trust in what you cannot see, to believe in what you can only feel. Because spiritual power from God doesn't operate like human power. It's not loud, it's not flashy, it's sacred. It's quiet. It's often born in the stillness after the storm. And it chooses vessels that are open, empty, and willing to be used for something far greater than themselves. So I'll ask you again, deeply and directly, are you willing to lose what is no longer aligned in order to receive what is divinely designed? Are you willing to walk through the fire, not because you enjoy the heat, but because you trust the transformation? Because if you are, then you're not breaking down, you're breaking open. And what's opening is not just a new chapter. It's a new consciousness, a new energy, a new level of access to your God-given gifts that will not just change your life, but ripple into every life you touch. This is the moment most miss. They look for signs, but ignore the storm. They pray for power, but run from the pressure. But not you. If you've come this far, you're already different. You're already marked. And that means the breaking point is not your end. It's your beginning. The moment the gift arrives, how to recognize the spiritual power when it awakens within you. There's a shift that happens not with thunder, but with stillness. You won't always notice it at first. It won't grab you by the shoulders and scream, "You've arrived." It comes in quietly, almost like a breath you've been holding for years is finally exhaled. And in that moment, something inside you settles. Not because the world around you is now perfect, but because you are no longer at war with yourself. This is the arrival. This is when the spiritual power begins to awaken within you. And although it may not feel like a lightning bolt, it will change everything. What most people don't realize is that divine power doesn't come as something external being handed to you. It is revealed from within. It's not about gaining something you didn't have, it's about remembering what was always there. That's why the journey is so intense. That's why the pressure, the breaking, the surrender is necessary. Because the truth is, God doesn't give you power like a gift wrapped in a box. He uncovers it from within your being. And He does so through process, not performance. You'll know the moment has arrived not because your life suddenly becomes easy, but because your perception begins to shift. You start to feel differently about the same situations. Where you used to react with fear, you now respond with clarity. Where you once sought approval, you now stand in truth. The noise of the world doesn't shake you like it used to. You realize you don't need to fight for your place anymore because you are rooted in a deeper knowing. You are chosen and you are ready. That knowing can't be faked. It can't be taught. It can only be lived. There's an inner alignment that starts to take hold. Your thoughts, your emotions, your actions, they begin to harmonize. Not in a forced way, but in a magnetic way. You start to notice that your presence carries a different energy. People might comment that you seem calmer, stronger, different. They may not be able to put it into words, but they feel it. And so do you. There's a sacred weight to your presence now. You're not trying to impress anyone, but your authenticity begins to carry impact. That's the gift. That's the power. It's not about dominance, it's about resonance. Your intuition sharpens. You begin to sense things before they happen. You walk into a room and feel the energy shift. You speak, and the words don't feel like they belong to your ego, they feel like they've been passed through you. You're no longer trying to do spiritual things. You've become a vessel. And in becoming a vessel, you realize something even more profound. This power was never about you alone. It was always meant to move through you, to reach others, to ripple into the collective and awaken something ancient in the people around you. One of the deepest signs that the spiritual power has awakened is that your desire to serve begins to outweigh your desire to be seen. You don't need the spotlight, you need alignment. You're not chasing platforms, you're chasing purpose. And that purpose is no longer an abstract idea. It's a fire in your bones. You wake up with a sense of holy urgency. You begin to steward your time, your energy, your emotions like they matter because they do. You become intentional, sacred, focused. And this focus isn't about achievement, it's about impact. But the most powerful shift of all is internal. You become deeply anchored in truth. Not just spiritual truth, but emotional truth, energetic truth, divine truth. You no longer lie to yourself about who you are or what you feel. You don't numb. You don't pretend. You look at your shadows with compassion and your light with humility. You walk into your contradictions and find God there. And in doing so, you become whole. That wholeness radiates. It draws people. It heals rooms. It opens doors. Not because you're trying to manifest something, but because you've become a clear conduit for something higher. And yet, even in this power, there is a sacred humility that takes root. You realize you are not the source, you are the steward. That God's power is not something you own, but something you honor. You carry it with reverence. You begin to pray differently, not to get things, but to stay aligned. You ask not just for answers, but for wisdom. Not just for blessings, but for clarity. You begin to live your life as a devotion. And that, more than anything, is the proof that the gift has arrived. So ask yourself now, in the quiet of your soul, what if the version of you you've been waiting to become is already here, waiting for you to recognize it? What if the power you've been praying for has already been activated, but you've been looking for the wrong signs? Because the truth is, the power doesn't make you louder, it makes you clearer. It doesn't make you superior, it makes you more surrendered. It doesn't make you more famous, it makes you more faithful. And when you live in that frequency, heaven begins to move through you in ways that confound logic and time. You don't need to strive anymore. You just need to stay connected. Stay open. Stay obedient to the whisper. Because the moment the gift arrives is not the end of the journey, it's the beginning of your assignment. Becoming the vessel, how to channel God's power without letting the ego take control. When the gift awakens within you, it is only the beginning. The real work begins not in receiving the power, but in learning how to carry it. And this is where many fall, because spiritual power, if not rooted in surrender, becomes spiritual pride. And pride is the fastest way to disconnect from the very source that gave you the gift. What you must understand is that this power is not yours in the way the world defines ownership. It does not belong to you, it flows through you. You are not the origin, you are the instrument. You are the vessel, and to remain a clear vessel, you must commit to the ongoing practice of humility. Ego is subtle. It doesn't always show up as arrogance or superiority. Sometimes it shows up as fear. Fear of being wrong. Fear of being judged. Fear of losing the power you've just discovered. But true spiritual power doesn't operate in fear. It flows through faith. It lives in the heart that is open, unguarded, and willing to be used even when it doesn't make sense. You must constantly check the posture of your soul. Are you serving to be seen, or are you serving because you've been sent? Are you seeking applause, or are you seeking alignment? These questions matter more now than ever before. The more power you carry, the more ego will try to disguise itself as purpose. It will whisper things like, "You've arrived," or "You're better than them," or "You need to protect your image." But the truth is, the moment you start protecting your image more than your integrity, you've already begun to drift. God doesn't bless your ego. He blesses your authenticity. And authenticity requires constant return to your center, return to your source. Return to the divine silence where ego dies and truth lives. If you want to carry God's power long-term, you must be willing to let the ego die 1,000 small deaths each day. You must stay low, stay listening, Stay surrendered. Being a vessel means you don't always get to choose how the power flows. You may want to speak, and the Spirit may ask you to stay silent. You may want to lead, and the Spirit may ask you to follow. You may want to build, and the Spirit may ask you to rest. The ego hates that kind of obedience because it operates on control. But the vessel doesn't control the flow, it simply stays open. The more open you remain, the more God can trust you with greater assignments. Not because you're perfect, but because you've proven that you won't misuse what's been placed in your hands. There will be moments when the power surges through you, and you'll feel it in your bones, those times when you speak and lives are changed, when your presence shifts rooms, when healing happens around you without effort. These are holy moments, but even then you must remember it's not about you. It's not your charisma. It's not your wisdom. It's not your energy. It's grace. Utter, undeserved, divine grace. And the moment you begin to take credit for what grace has done, the flow begins to slow. Not because God is punishing you, but because He protects what is sacred. To remain a vessel, you must also protect your inner world. The world will try to pull on you. People will project their expectations, their needs, their wounds onto you. Some will idolize you, others will criticize you. Both are irrelevant. You are not here to perform. You are here to pour. And you cannot pour if you're constantly leaking. Guard your time with God. Guard your solitude. Guard your heart. Do not let your gift become a substitute for intimacy with the Source. Because when you stay connected, the power not only remains, it expands. The greatest vessels in history were not those who shouted the loudest or built the biggest platforms. They were those who emptied themselves daily. They walked in love, in truth, in alignment. They didn't need to broadcast their connection with God, it was felt. It was seen in how they moved, how they spoke, how they served. That's what you are being called into. Not performance, but presence. Not noise, but depth. Not perfection, but purity of intention. So ask yourself deeply and honestly, am I willing to be invisible to the world if it means being fully seen by God? Am I willing to be faithful in the unseen, the uncelebrated, the hidden places where true power is cultivated? Because the vessel is not defined by how many people look at it, it's defined by how clearly it reflects the one who flows through it. You don't need to be extraordinary. You just need to be willing. You just need to be available. And when you are, the power that flows through you will do what no human could orchestrate. It will heal, it will awaken, it will elevate, and it will do so with or without your name attached to it. That's the paradox of spiritual power. The more you let go of needing to be someone, the more you become the very person the world needs. This is what it means to carry the gift. This is what it means to walk in divine power, not as an identity, but as a responsibility, not as a status, but as a sacred trust. And if you can hold that trust with reverence, if you can walk humbly with what's been placed in your soul, then nothing will be impossible. Because you won't be moving alone, you'll be moving with God. And that's the real miracle. Not that the power comes, but that it comes through someone like you. Someone real, someone surrendered, someone willing to become the vessel. Now go, not to prove, not to perform, but to pour. Make your life the altar. Let your heart be the offering. The power is already within you. Now, carry it well,